Hello everyone, Sandra here. Today I'm gonna respond to a creationist video that people wanted me to debunk. And the sad thing about this is that this video has about 40,000 views, and it actually has really good ratings, which is quite depressing to be honest. I'm guessing not too many people have debunked this, and that's why it has such good statistics. But anyway, let's get on with it.
One of the main arguments Darwin used for his theory was that of homology, these odd similarities between very different animals. Why would they be so similar unless they were related? And this does make sense. After all, take siblings. They look pretty similar. They're closely related. Then take cousins or third uncles or former roommates.
Like, appearance between animals is a good indication, yes, that species are probably related to each other and share a common ancestry. But this isn't always the case. There's something called convergent evolution, where two distinct species that don't have any recent evolutionary common ancestry at all still evolve to look similar, or have similar attributes. For instance, sharks and killer whales have a lot of similar attributes. They have a fin roughly at the same place of their back, yet one is a fish and the other is a mammal, separated by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. But if you were to just go by homology, you might be under the impression that maybe these two have some kind of relation. Today we have modern tools that are far superior to look at genotypes instead of just phenotypes to determine evolutionary relationships.
Full observers for a long time have noticed that very different creatures have very similar bits. Take a look at this guy. He's got an arm that starts with one bone, followed by two bones, and then lots of tiny bones for the wrist and fingers and whatnot. Great for grabbing stuff and high-fiving. Whales and dogs have basically the same structure, but they're not so good at those things.
Okay, so let me see if I understand what you're getting at here. So you're saying that the bone structure is similar between humans and other mammals. But those mammals that you're pointing out here, they can't do the functions with those bones as well as humans can. My question to you would be, but what's your point? You seem to fundamentally misunderstand how evolution works. Evolution doesn't just go back to the drawing board when a species needs some kind of adaptation and just takes like the previous design and just throws it in the bin. No, evolution works with what's already there, okay? That's why, even though humans have no need for a tail, we still have a tailbone. Basically, the tailbones have shrunk over millions of years in our evolution. But it's never gone away completely, and honestly, there's really no need for it to go away either. But the point is, evolution doesn't just get rid of things all of a sudden when it's not needed for any animal.
Before Darwin, biologists chalked this up to common design. Just like a painter has a particular style and reuses similar colors or themes that he likes across a lot of his work, so the thinking went, similarities in animal design pointed to a common designer. A few years later, along comes Darwin, and he figured that these structural similarities were important evidence for his theory of evolution. So, rather than a common designer, he instead credited common ancestry. But which is the proper explanation for these obvious similarities?
Let me turn this around on you, okay? You literally just complained about certain bones not working as well in other mammals, okay? If there is common design, so to speak, wouldn't God then be a pretty shit designer? You are the one who's supposed to believe that your God is perfect. Why would God then be so sloppy when it came to how he designed certain animals? Why would he leave unnecessary traits in some animals? That doesn't make any sense. It does make sense, however, if animals evolve over millions of years. Bro, are you even trying?
Biologist Tim Barra. Guys, I've got a really good illustration. If you look at a 1953 Corvette and compare it to the latest model, only the most general resemblances are evident. But if you compare 53 and 54 side by side, and so on, the descent with modification is overwhelmingly obvious. The evidence is so solid and comprehensive that it can't be denied by reasonable people. In using this analogy, Dr. Barra actually demonstrates precisely the opposite of what he intended. Here's why. A succession of even very similar forms doesn't demand common descent. It could, in this case it does, instead point to a common designer. These guys, the engineers at Chevy.
Okay, so this is really silly, and you should feel silly. And here's why. The reason we know that cars require a designer is because the only way we see cars in the world is if they are manufactured by humans, okay? If we were to find that somewhere on this planet there's maybe, oh, I don't know, a plant or something that has, Chevy Corvettes growing on its fucking stems, that would completely blow your argument out of the water. This is really just a watchmaker argument, but even dumber. Also, I did like a backward search here when it comes to this paragraph you're showing, and apparently this guy didn't make the analogy of cars and whatever. What he's talking about is the fossil record, so you're just being absolutely dishonest here. I'm sorry, isn't lying against your Christian faith or something? I believe it was one of those, what are they called again? Oh yeah, the 10 Commandments.
Because the argument was so central to Darwin's case, his followers eliminated the question by simply redefining the word from simple similarity to meaning similarity due to common ancestry. It's a clever way to end an argument if you can get away with it, but for anybody paying attention, it's a baldly
come on,
no serious biologist could possibly make that mistake. Nobody defines homology that way and then uses it as evidence for evolution. Come on, people couldn't possibly be that dumb. The circular argumentation is still regularly used in high school, even college level textbooks were made to escape the circularity, but they had to give up on homology as evidence. And instead, they looked to other lines of evidence for common ancestry, namely DNA. Look at different creatures' DNA. The rule of thumb is, the more similar, the more closely related, and vice versa. Biologists expected to see a gradual branching path of DNA mutations from species to species, and they did find some success. Take for instance this little guy. He's a gene called cytochrome C. So, if we compare your cute little cytochrome C to this ugly, hairy chimpanzee cytochrome C, they look exactly alike. Weird. With dogs, there's about 90% similarity, moths, about 2/3 similar, and yeast, only about half similarity. Meet cytochrome B. He's a lot like C, except he likes to throw monkey wrenches into Darwin's expectations. He's just one example of many. If Darwinism is true, we should be able to construct a reasonably consistent family tree pretty much no matter what genes we compare. But that's far from the case. In reality, using genes like cytochrome C as evidence for common ancestry is just a good example of molecular cherry picking.
Okay, see, I just love when creationists do this sort of shit. When they are so dishonest, but they are dishonest in a way where it becomes really easy to fact check them. Okay, so let's just take a look at this paper that you've highlighted here. Okay, so let me find this online and let me look at the conclusions of the paper. Because if you're right, it should back up your point. Well, would you look at that? Conflicts between gene trees estimated at different loci have sometimes been seen as obstacles for inferring phylogenies. However, we suggest that gene tree conflict provides an opportunity to obtain information regarding the processes that have shaped organismal genomes. With the increasing abundance of genomic data, it is important that phylogenetic methods take into account many loci and therefore many gene trees. Conflicting topologies are likely to become the norm, and the amount of gene tree discordance expected by chance under a simple neutral model can now be predicted analytically or by simulation. New ways of understanding gene trees will assist in modeling multiple sources of gene tree conflict simultaneously, or in distinguishing sources of conflict, such as in deciding whether discordance is due to hybridization or incomplete lineage sorting, and in judging whether discordance is more frequent than expected under a null model. Long-standing issues about inferring species trees can now be re-examined in a new light, including problems with combining data sources, effects of taxon sampling, and statistical consistency of phylogenetics estimators. Opportunities also exist for modeling, such as in relaxing the assumptions of the multi-species coalescent. The outstanding questions detailed in Box 4 could provide a useful framework for future research on gene tree discordance in phylogenetics. Bro, this paper is just talking about certain issues that arise with any type of analysis of genetic material. They are not questioning genetic lineages established under an evolutionary model. You dishonest fucking liar. Anyway, I think that's going to be enough of a response. My head just can't take any more of this nonsense. So thank you guys for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.